Hey, kia ora koutou whānau, welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. And before you turn off, because Chewy's not here, he's on his way home. Don't panic, he's on his way home. We'll see him within 10 minutes or so. I know, I'm okay with him being the favourite, but he'll be here soon. How are you all? You all doing good? I can start off the show without him. I can do it without Chewy if we need to. And we probably will. Everyone well? Everyone doing well? I can see everyone in the chats having a good time. Evening, folks. People claiming they're on time. A big wave from Rua. Kia ora koutou. All going off in the chat. Lovely to see you guys. Interesting show tonight. I realised I have become more aware that sometimes when we play video clips, we sort of lose a bunch of messaging amongst the length of video clip. So tonight, I've changed it up a little bit. We're going to show some video clip of the Minister for Social Development and Employment, Louise Upston. But what I've done is I've made the clips shorter. So rather than having Jack Tame ask her the same question 3 times and her not answering, I'm just going to go, he's asked this question 2 other times and she hadn't asked it. When she did answer, this was the answer, just to save a little bit of time. I'm trying to be a bit more expedient with how we get through some of these stories. I know you guys know of, and most people when we talk about him just say he's amazing, know of James OBrien. James OBrien works for a talk station in the UK called LBC. And he pops up in my, pardon me, in my YouTube feed because I listen to some of his things. Actually, while I'm doing this, because I haven't got Chewy to check my sound, I'm just going to have a 20-second chat with you while I played some music up in the background. I just kind of want to know that you can hear the music, and if you can, then we're all good to go because I haven't been able to test it yet. So James OBrien has obviously been a strong component. He was a strong campaigner for the stay vote when it was Brexit, right? And what's happening subsequent to Brexit is there are a whole bunch of people who are going, oh, this is not what we were voting for. And I came across 2 conversations today. They're not new or recent conversations. They're from the past couple of years. And I predict we will be hearing these kinds of conversations, maybe on Talkback Radio, maybe just amongst you and your friends, maybe people writing blogs or letters to the editor within the next 18 months to 2 years based on what they thought they were voting for this government and what they ended up getting. The language you'll hear from the 2 clips I'm going to play you could be being said about the campaign that National led and got a National Act New Zealand First government in. So it's a bit of a different story because it's not really a story per se. It's more like, guys, here's the crystal ball. This is a bit of a warning that this is coming. There will be people in your life that will be reacting to you and around you like these callers reacted to James. It's not a lot of time. One's only about 15, 20 seconds. The other one's like a minute and a half. But I think what you'll get the point. You'll get the point when I play it. And also we are going to be talking, we haven't talked about him much in the last kind of 4 or 5 or 6 months. Certainly not this year. Our old mate, Plunket. Our old mate, Plunket, did a piece today where he was speaking in a derogatory way about females for a change. You know, that's not outside Karen's MO quite often. And here, the clip says, reveals how much Mihingarangi Forbes gets paid for attacking the government. Now, I've listened through that whole clip, so you don't have to. And I want to just show you guys the thinly veiled lie that he portrays as what he considers to be evidence and what he doesn't consider to be evidence. So what are his standards for evidence that he then turns into an opinion. And I know most of you guys will actually already get this, right? But you won't be surprised to know that what I'm going to show you tonight is his evidence when it's a narrative that he wants to push through or supports his narrative. No evidence is needed for him to believe what's said. Even glaringly obvious conflicts of interest, right? Doesn't matter if what's said fits with his narrative, then he'll use it. And then on the other hand, when there is no evidence of a conflict, he'll use the no evidence, like a conspiracy theorist, as evidence for why the people who have the opposing view are wrong. Anyway, it sounds a little bit convoluted, but you'll get the gist of it when we play it through the night as well. But as I said, Chewy will be here within about 5, 10, 15 minutes. Well, he texted me about 5 minutes ago and he said it was 15 minutes away. So yeah, we'll probably see him. What we'll do, because we've got the other two stories, the Karen Plunket story and the James O'Brien story, are more kind of opinion piece. So we'll save those till Chewy gets here. I mean, it's all opinion piece, but they're more like, here's an idea around what we hear, whereas the Louise Upston one is very much current in the news, so we can do that first. But before we do that, I wanted to show you one of the things that I found most pleasing today. We haven't talked about Taylor Swift. Well, I've talked about her incessantly because my 17-year-old and 14-year-old are in love with her. And so now, of course, they're massive Kansas City Chiefs fans because Taylor Swift connection. But I've watched American football for a long time. So I watched some of the Super Bowl yesterday. I saw the last kind of 20 minutes. It was a really exciting finish. It was actually a really good game. But the thing that's filled me with the most joy of all today was this tweet from the orange Atang, Donald J. Trump. So if you're listening to the audio podcast, I will read it out to you. He says this: Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on a great game and a fantastic comeback. Under immense pressure, you represented the great state of Kansas and, in fact, the entire USA so very well. Our country is very proud of you. Now, the thing that I took great joy in is that the Kansas City Chiefs are not in the state of Kansas. They're actually in Missouri. They're not in Kansas at all. And I was thinking, there's like, if you go to, because there's people going around saying, oh, the tweet was fake, it's not real. You can go to fact checks and they can actually spell it out for you. And their result is it's true, but it needs context, right? The context is Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas are like 15-minute drive from one another. The border kind of runs between them and they're just on one side or the other. So it is actually a mistake I'm sure a lot of people would make. However, I like to try and contextualize things. There's a place down here just north of Dunedin called Palmerston. And of course, there's a place in the North Island called Palmerston North. If any politician here wanted to congratulate such and such team from, North Otago, Palmerston, and it was actually Palmerston North, they get hauled over the coals as well, even though one's Palmerston and one's Palmerston North. It just made me laugh. To see this man. I got a very big brain. I use all the best words, not actually, and the man who wants to run the country not actually know where the Super Bowl team is from. Pretty funny. The other thing I wanted to show you as well, and I put this out on Twitter today, if you see my Twitter feed, is the idea of shadow banning. Now, we talked to Jordan Rivers last week about him being shadow banned, and he said he gets shadow banned when, now, I guess for context, we probably all know this, but shadow banning to me, the way I would explain it, is you don't get banned, you don't get blocked, but something in the algorithm goes ruh-roh, and your product doesn't get shown to the people it normally would. Something in the algorithm, a decision is made in the algorithm, whether it's a human decision or an automated decision, that pushes things down the scale of availability in an algorithm. And it's happened, and obviously Jordan's got like 180,000 followers, so he sees it quite easily because his videos go from tens of thousands to hundreds. It's a big discrepancy. I don't have those kinds of numbers on my TikTok. I have somewhere between sort of 500 and 5,000 views. Some get more than that, but per video. But it's happened today, and I just wanted to show it to you, just so people are aware this kind of thing is happening and what it's happening on. So this is my TikTok, at Pat Brittenton, if you want to come and follow me. And these are, I put out 4 clips today. So these two here with Chewy at the front and Chloe at the front have only just dropped. So they've had, you can see, 360, 335 views. This one that I put out early afternoon, which is Mihingarangi, Forbes, and Mr. Seymour's had 3, nearly getting towards 4,000. You can see if you go through them, there's an 11,000 one for News Talk ZB and 2,000 there, and 800 and 800 and 2,000. And then you come up to this one right here, if you can see it. And this is talking about Israel and Gaza. And this is the video that where we talked about what Aotearoa Liberation League's video had done as well. And if you can't see it, if it's not very clear to you, 29 views. So that video there at 29 views went out before the David Seymour one, which is approaching 4,000 views. So if you ever were questioning the idea, I mean, maybe shadow banning, people are like, well, it's a bit of a, it's jargon and what does it mean? But if you've ever questioned the idea that some content through some algorithms gets depressed so that fewer people see it, we're having evidence all over the place. When we spoke to Jordan, he said it was Israel and Gaza stuff, and it was also Donald Trump stuff for him. I've seen it on Israel and Gaza stuff. And I know that some people who use TikTok, and I think we saw it in Aotearoa Liberation League's video last night, they wouldn't say the word genocide. They printed it and then kind of went genocide, and so it wasn't connected together to try and fool the algorithm. But they've made a decision in the algorithm that they don't want people seeing conversations around Israel and Gaza. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think it's a bad thing. I think probably so it'll be getting done for one of two reasons. Either because they don't want people to see what Israel's doing. That could be one of the reasons. Or if it was more altruistic, they just don't want to see violence to that scale on their platform. That would be about as good as it gets. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to show you that as it went. Hey, before we get going, let's say a huge thanks to all our patrons. We've had some new patrons come on board over the weekend. Down here, Butty Burgers has become a producer, and all of our lovely executive producers and senior producers and super patrons, as well as our coffee runners, fuel and patrons who are there. Really appreciate what you guys do and help us to keep doing what we're doing. Every little bit genuinely helps. At some stage before the end of February, we will have an honest conversation with you about money. I know that those of you who have been with us for a while were aware of the conversation we started last year, the end of last year, to give you a very clear and heads up as to what's going on. In a nutshell, the way to continue on for us this year involves patrons, involves merch, and involves advertising. I've been talking to a couple of advertisers. I have to be honest, though, my time is very difficult to find space to talk to people at the moment. I'm making 70 pieces of content a week at the moment, 70. So we're trying to do everything we can, and we're trying to keep it all going as we can, but we will have an honest and open conversation with you, our whānau, before the end of February. And other than that, that's about as much as I can say about that right now. That's all I have to say about that. All right, team, let us have a look at, see my handwriting? Look how much, I don't know if you remember last year, I'd say things like, I can't even read my handwriting. So I'm being much more precise in my notes now to make sure that I can actually read out, because sometimes I prep these at 3 in the afternoon and I'll have forgotten by this time of night what it's supposed to be. But I think we should have a talk about Louise Upston, the Minister for Social Development and Employment, her conversation on Q&A over the weekend. Now, this is a very short clip, this first one, but I wanted to play it to you because I thought it was important for us to actually hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what the number one priority for Louise Upston was becoming the new Minister for Social Development and Employment. So this is literally just like a 7-second clip, so you can all hear from her mouth what is the number one priority.
And so that is absolutely my priority one, is supporting more people off the job seeker benefit and into.
There you go. That's all it is. So her number one priority, it's very clear. She wants to state it so everyone here is getting more people off the benefit. Now, this theme will come back through a couple of times, right? The unemployment numbers went up last week, and we've been told time and time and time again that one of the markers to help get inflation under control is to have more people unemployed. So this is a really important thing to remember. The number one priority for the Minister for Social Development and Employment, number one priority, is to have fewer people on the job seeker benefit at a time where there are going to be more unemployed people. So logic dictates, if there's going to be more unemployed people, but fewer people on the job seeker I can hear a little man coming on the job seeker. Hey, here's
I'm
the
your
little man.
little man. Sorry I'm late, Pat.
That's
Late
right, mate.
fee, etc., etc.
We've actually just started, bro. We're just on the very first story. I've just played the very first clip of Louise Upston from Q&A over the weekend telling us that her number one priority as Minister for Social Development and Employment is to have fewer people on the job seeker. And I'm just explaining to people to remember this is a time where unemployment's going up and that for us to get quote unquote inflation under control, we need more unemployed people. So if we have more people who are unemployed, but National wants fewer people on the job seeker, there is a natural conclusion to that. And that is they bump people off it for whatever reason they can. So
it's 1995 again.
It is 1995, like the party like it's 1995. So just so people know, and this is what I've done through the interview, Chewy. So it's not going to take as long tonight. This is a conversation because one of the things that National's bringing back, and she's saying one of the things that National's bringing back is to help beneficiaries get jobs is the 90-day trials, right? Specifically to do with people on the benefit. So Jack Tame asks her, how will the 90-day trial help beneficiaries find employment? Now, what I've left off the video, Chewy, and I've already told Whānau about this, is the first two times she didn't answer the question. So he's asked the question, she didn't answer it. He asked the question again, she didn't answer it. And then this now is the third time.
Prisoners, as I've talked about.
Doesn't answer the question, though. What evidence do you have that the 90-day trial period's an effective way of doing that?
Any employer that I have spoken to recently who talks about the fact that is one of the issues that stops them from taking on staff. And if on top of that...
Just employer feedback is the evidence you're basing that on.
Which would be called anecdotal evidence.
That's what I'm referring to.
Right. So under the previous National Government, Treasury commissioned a detailed report on the 90-day trial periods. Have you read that research?
I haven't, no.
I went through it. Page 5, quote, this is under the previous National Government.
Yep.
We find no evidence that the 90-day trial policy increased the probability that a new hire by a firm was a beneficiary or job seeker beneficiary.
So expert advice to a national government said that will not work. But remember what this government's about? This government's about not taking official advice. Time and time and time again.
Vibes.
We will not take official advice. And they have an actual answer for this now. And we've heard this word for word before.
Yeah. So Treasury provides advice all the time, as government agencies do. At the end of the day...
What did the authors of that report get wrong?
Well, at the end of the day, ministers make decisions, and I'm really clear. My priority is to support job seekers into work.
This is a report about those trial periods from when National was last in government.
Yep.
You haven't even read it, but the authors say that your point is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, so there's not one thing that is going to support us getting those numbers down. 190,000 New Zealanders on the job seeker benefit. They're missing out on the opportunities and choices that work brings.
There's no one thing. I think everyone would agree with that.
There's no one thing.
But the
combination
report
of factors
commissioned under the previous National Government that had a similar policy in place said that this one thing is totally ineffective.
Well,
another thing you're going to introduce...
I think time will tell on that. And as I say, I am really focused on how we support people into work. One of the things that I'll be doing...
There you go, supporting people into work. So there you go, Chewy. There's your first starter for 10, mate. Doesn't want to talk about it and refuses to take advice, which is the theme of this government.
Yeah. In a job, if she's in her 90-day trial, isn't she?
No, we don't get to do it with our politicians, apparently. It's not good enough for them.
Oh, how convenient that they have that carved out. In a job, as part of your onboarding, maybe you had to read a document or two.
Yeah.
To something under your purview of your job. And you can just go, I haven't read it. Don't need to.
Yeah.
Vibes. This government's about vibes.
Well, and it's also about that doesn't suit our narrative. And if that doesn't suit our narrative, we're not going to use it, because their narrative is to get more people off the benefit, even though we're coming into a time where there's going to be more unemployed people. Now, the Labour governments of the past have always been blamed. They've always been accused of the way they did that was they switched people off the job seeker or the dole and they put them on a sickness benefit. That's what and I'm not even saying that's true or not, but that was always the accusation at Labour. The accusation towards National has always been they just put sanctions on people and cut them off, which is the next part of this conversation. That's called a segue. The conversation about sanctions. Will sanctions on beneficiaries increase or decrease under National as compared to Labor? Again, Jack Tame asked that question. She didn't answer. This is the second time he asked the question.
So will the number of people sanctioned, the beneficiaries sanctioned, increase or decrease under your government?
I would expect it will increase. It's a consequence of people not taking actions to help themselves.
And we should note that it's significantly decreased under the previous government relative to the previous National government.
50%.
Yeah. So what evidence do you have that sanctions are an effective way of getting people into work?
Yeah, so exactly that. So we now have 190,000 people on the job seeker benefit, 67,000 more than 6 years ago. And if we look at the use of sanctions or consequences for people not taking the steps.
We're all kind to each other, and that caused us to get lazier and want everyone else to do the job. That's apparently what happened. That was about it. And Jacinda and COVID and vaccines and tinfoil. That's the reason, I think. All those things.
They need to take to find work. That's 50% more.
You've read the report from the Welfare Expert Advisory Group?
Yes.
Quote, there is little evidence in support of using obligations and sanctions to change behaviour. Rather, there's research indicating they compound social harm and disconnectedness. What did that report get wrong?
Yeah, so there's a range of research, and I acknowledge that.
What did they get wrong about that?
Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Advice, expert advice, research, National, la 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 la. That's about as much as they do with it.
Well, as I say, there's a range of views around consequences.
So what was wrong about that line from the Welfare Expert Advisory
I'm not
Group?
saying it's wrong. There's a range of views.
So you agree with them that there's little evidence in support of sanctions?
There's a range of views. They have one view. My view is very clear.
You said you agree with that line.
My view, Jack, is very clear. We have seen an absolute blowing out of welfare dependency under the watch of Carmel Sepuloni and the Labor government. I don't think that's good enough. And I want to make sure, so the traffic light policy that you have referred to isn't just about sanctions. Part of having a system like that is to look at what is the risk that someone is going to be longer term on welfare. So it's also about what additional support do they need.
So what happens if someone gets the red light?
Yep.
The worst scenario, they have their benefits suspended. What happens to them?
So I'm cutting that there for the same reason. She goes through about 60 seconds, 90 seconds not answering that question. And the next clip I'm going to play is actually where she starts to answer that question. So we're tightening up the show. There you go, Chewy. So, how about sanctions that she wants to make sure we're all clear of are otherwise called consequences? And that's what that's what they're saying. Again, 2 lots of no research, doesn't work, not saying it's going to work, and it could lead to people being cut off altogether, which is the next part of the conversation. Yours, though, sir.
New Zealand back on track, back to the old ideas at the stale back end of the pantry, and that is the war on the poor. We're bringing it back. War on the poor too, electric boogaloo. We are somehow coming out of a period of record low unemployment. And a lot of that is people that are transitioning between jobs. They're finding jobs relatively easy. And then there's the small hardcore of, for lack of a better word, unemployable. Like they're people that have been moved off the sickness benefit. They are people that have no skills, mental impairment, drug addiction issues, that sort of thing. Lots of people that need wraparound care that they often don't get. They are not going to be able to go into a job 90-day trial period or not. Now, National want to hold up the 90-day trial period as something that will go, this will mean that an employer will be happy to take a risk on someone who hasn't worked for maybe 8 years. No, because that person that hasn't been working for 8 years, maybe they've had to deal with addiction issues or some sort of mental health or physical injury or that sort of thing. They haven't been in the job market for 8 years. And in front of them is people with more relevant experience that have been unemployed for shorter periods of time. Maybe they just jumped off for a job, know that they catch one pretty easy. They're still more employable than this guy, 90-day period or not. It's not something like they've gone, it's 90-day period for everyone, It's not going, hey, look, we know some of these guys are hard nuts to crack. Maybe for these people, the long-term unemployed, they qualify for a 90-day trial. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. They haven't thought about this. They haven't thought about the long-term consequences of the fact that we are transitioning to out of a pandemic. Businesses are failing. They know that it is record high unemployment, the only record low unemployment. The only way that it's got to go is up, and they're bringing in harsher measures. It is national of the past. It is national of the mean 90s. And it is dehumanizing.
Yeah. Because just remember also, like Bomber talked to us about in that week, his opinion about this, as he refers to them, far-right racist government, Bomber's words, have already got us into a war as an ally of America. That's where we've started. Was that anyone's guess for the start of the year? Sure, you don't know quite what we're talking about tonight, but later on tonight we're going to talk about Brexit, and I'm going to bring some things together to show how the response to Brexit today is going to be like the response to this government within the next 2 years. We'll do that a bit later on, though. Right, let's jump back into this, shall we? So what I've done is I've cut out a big chunk of the video, but the question was, what happens if a person on a benefit goes to that worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is being cut off altogether.
With their obligations.
What about the 12%?
I'll just repeat that in case they cut off. So she's saying that once you get to that worst case scenario, 88% of people sort out their issue. So there's 12% left over who don't. And so that's why Jack is saying, what about that 12%? So 12% of people, no matter what you do to them, will not sort themselves out, no matter what sanctions you put on it. Maybe, Chewy, they're the people you're describing with addiction issues, with mental health issues, whatever it is, who haven't been funneled into the sickness benefit. For whatever reason, these sanctions aren't going to be the way to help them. What about them? That's where he's up to.
Well, that's a consequence. So if you think about the thousands of low-income taxpayers who are assisting to fund the welfare system, they think it's quite acceptable that people play their part.
Yeah.
This constantly gets missed. If you're on a benefit, you also pay tax.
Yep.
You are a taxpayer. And on a benefit, you aren't on a free ride. You lose some of your benefit to tax.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when they miss this out.
Yeah. Yep.
To find a job, and that's common
I'm just
sense.
interested if someone has their benefit card in an absolute worst case scenario. How would they pay to survive?
Well, there'll be a range of options.
Like what?
But the welfare system.
What are those options?
The welfare system
what
is
are those options?
mutual obligations, and if they are not fulfilling their obligations, then it is quite clear about the fact that the welfare system will not support them beyond that point.
What are their options?
Well, they might go with family, they might go with friends, there might be others that look after them. For community,
family and friends, except of course the WEAG report quote that you agreed with said there's research indicating they compound social harm and disconnectedness. So family and friends might not be an option.
Yeah, but
what would be the impact
other...
on the child with the 50% sanction on a parent? What would be the impact on the child if a parent had their benefit cut by 50%?
Yeah, so that's why I've proposed 2 additional non-financial sanctions.
The money management, for example.
And community
But you still have that option for a 50% cut to a parent beneficiary of the child. So I want to know, in that worst case scenario...
Well, I'm not anticipating that will be used in the same...
That's a kind of stupid answer. That's like, do you remember Nicola Willis saying that everyone who gets a tax cut's going to save it so it won't add to inflation? She didn't anticipate them spending that tax cut. She's not anticipating it ever getting to a point where they're going to be cutting parents off. So then why is it part of the policy? Just don't make it part of the policy. Have other ways of doing whatever it is you need to do. But she's not anticipating that, Chewy.
Just heartless and stupid. So brainless and heartless.
All right.
Yep, and it's used now.
So what
and
happens,
it was used under Labor.
So what happens to those children?
Well, their families, as I said, 88%, then comply with their obligations, and it's a final resort. It's a last resort. So I don't want to leave the impression that is something that happens very often. So if you look
but it does happen, and it will happen under your government.
It does.
Although she's just said 88% comply Now, she also talked about 190,000 people on job seekers. 88%, leaving the 12% over, is 23,000 people. I'm not saying those are the exact numbers that are going to get to that point, but she said that 88%, that means if it doesn't happen very often, 12% sounds like, 12% is 1/8 of the people on benefits. That sounds like a significant enough number to have a better answer than she's got, Chewy.
It's just monstrous.
And it's
like, they're going to damage these kids. The shame that these social services can make people feel.
Yeah.
And like, if they're going to crash down so hard on people, then crime is an option. Living under a bridge is an option.
And that's it. What I want to do at the end of this is, I know that I don't want to bang on about Talkback Radio, but I've done this topic a million times, and I'll tell you how I talked about it to my conservative audience at News Talk ZB.
So if you look
But it does happen, and it will happen under your government.
It does, and it's a final step.
Yeah.
Look, if you think about the working income frontline staff, they work incredibly hard to support people to do their bit, but there will be some that actually refuse to, and there should be a consequence. And
for their children as well.
That's only fair to tax-paying New Zealanders that there is a consequence.
Is it fair to their children?
Well, as a parent, I think it's really important that parents with children
That's not the question,
take
though.
the
Is it
responsibility.
fair to their children? Yeah.
The option is that they comply with the obligations.
Kids should choose better parents.
They're not.
It's a good out. Kids should choose better parents. That is a response from Jack. And look, I guess let's take a step back. There does have to be some checks and balances through the way, but I guess I think about, like, put it this way. Let's just say all the stereotypes are correct, and that the right wing are heartless pricks who just want to, vindictively get as many people off the benefit as they can so they can give tax breaks to their wealthy mates. Let's just say that that's true. And let's just say that the left want to do everything they can to, fund people to paint paintings and sit on their asses and play PlayStation and do nothing and just give them all the money that they want. They're the two extremes, right? If you had to pick one of those, I'd much rather pick the one that was looking after people. I'd much rather look after people if they didn't need it than kick people off something if they did. And I think that's why I sit more comfortably in the left than the right, Chewy.
Yeah, 100%. I've been there. I've been in that space. I've had parents without work while I've been a kid. I've been a young adult in between jobs. This is one of those things. It's short-term thinking. It's old, dumb thinking, and it's also short-term thinking. If we punch down on these families, with kids, if we give people not a pathway of hope, but a pathway of we're going to drop the hammer on you.
Yeah.
Isn't it better just to make sure that these kids are insulated from this? I don't care if mum never works again, as long as she raises her kids to be functional citizens that go to school. That they're fed, that they learn, that they become functional members of our society, that they do better than their parents.
Yep.
But that is, I guess, outside of the scope of a 3-year term in government, or maybe a 6-year term in government. We don't care, because by the time those kids get older and become a problem, we're not the government anymore because people got sick of us. It's Labour's fault they're out ram raiding. People don't see the link because they don't think far enough. Teachers and social services scream this from the fucking rooftops, that we have to make sure these kids don't get broken. Because broken kids lead to broken adults.
Which leads to a broken society.
And this heavy-handedness, it's a traffic light system. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's get fucked, live under a bridge and steal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a benefit to prison pipeline. It is a way to keep the worker scared of losing their job. It is a way to suppress wages. It is economy over people, because those two things, apparently, to National, are mutually exclusive, and they miss the part where the economy is made of people.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and Jack was doing it in that conversation. I can distinctly remember various nights of Talkback where I was talking to a primarily old white conservative audience, and there was a story I can actually remember about, a solo mum who lived in a house that was frequented by gang members, right? It was her house. She was had provided for it from the state. It was Housing New Zealand. And the street that was around her was constantly phoning complaints and wanted to get rid of her. And, because that caused issues in the area. And I would just quite simply say on this night to people, and then what? Okay. So we've kicked out this mum with 4 or 5 kids. Now what? And they'd be like, I don't care. Like, well, you can't care because maybe she's in a car at the end of your driveway. Now what? There has to be a what happens next after these consequences go through. And like people have been saying in the chat and stuff, it's like crime will go up, children will be worse off, families will be worse off. And then what? Okay, so let's kick that mum out of her house with her 4 kids and not give her another one. Oh, and cut her benefit because she's one of the 12% that the sanctions hasn't worked for. So she's now got no money, no place to live. Then what? And 4 kids. Like, tell me, then what? And obviously there's no answer to that, which is why if I'm going to err on the side of giving someone a benefit who doesn't need it, or making sure that all those who do need it have it, I would always lean towards all those that do. I would rather give it to a percentage that don't need it than cut out a percentage that do. And that's, I think, one of the big differences in general between the left and the right. It's like I would rather someone, there's always these questions about, such and such got a tax cut and they were based in Sweden or whatever those things were from COVID or a COVID payment.
There's always outliers.
Yeah, but it was actually clear amongst those things that the people who needed it here got it, and having to do the admin to cut those people out would have cost more than they spent on the few people who got it. I think it's the same. It's like we talked about last night. It sounds like they want to go to means testing, meaning let's get everybody's story and figure it out and get it. That's going to cost 10 times as much in admin than you'd be paying to have it as a one-size-fits-all, catching some people who maybe don't need it. But that's when the vindictive nature of the right comes in.
Yeah.
Because they'd rather spend more and be vindictive than spend less and allow some poor person to get a benefit that they may not be entitled to. Because if they're the parties of looking after every single one of your dollars, they should be making the decisions that look after every single one of your dollars, but they don't. They make the decisions based around beneficiaries that are the most vindictive because that's what their base wants.
She was real happy to bring up the fact, as a parent, I think parents should parent their kids. Great. Fantastic. Have you been a parent that has had to interface with a government department like WINS?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to worry about your shopping bill? Have you had to look at your trolley and go, I need to put some of this back at the counter? Those are the sort of like dehumanizing, degrading things that these politicians need to come in and have experience of. They need empathy. They need human experience. Like these families, these marginal families, if they're going to need a support structure, if they don't get it from the state, they will get it from somewhere else. And for a lot of communities where they're talking about these families and their kids, that support structure is gangs.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. So what they're doing is they're going to drive people to gangs whilst they're talking about cleaning up gangs because they're taking them off places they have no more support. So this is what do you call it when you sign up to something? Whatever that word is. This is a sign up for gangs and for gangs to look after people.
Drive.
Yeah. It's a recruitment drive. Yep. 100%.
If a family needs firewood and can't get money like a grant from WINS, they will go to a gang. If they can't get a food grant, the gang will supply food. They will get it for them. They'll steal it to get it, but they'll do it because that is their community. Gangs are a community of people that the state doesn't want. The state created them. Broken Borstal kids. I think we're noticing the link already. I spoke about broken kids.
Yep.
We're going to break more kids.
Yep.
And we want to stop gangs. We've had opportunities to break gangs, revenue streams, influence. Every time a right-wing government comes in to be tough on gangs, they don't do it because they don't want to be soft on gangs. They want to be hard on everybody, and it makes the gangs look good. It makes the gangs look like the only option. It makes crime more appealing to take that risk, to talk to the people that you wouldn't want to talk to, because the people that you're supposed to be able to talk to, they don't want to talk to you. You're scum. You've got your hand out. Maybe if you're poor, you should rewind back to 2 years ago when you decided to have a kid, or you found out that you're pregnant, and you go, I'm going to be poor sometime in the future. Like, it's always, these people shouldn't have kids. That's so close to the eugenics argument.
Yeah. But those that
Right,
can should, and no one else.
And I see Kiwi Rob, yes, Labour gave money to Harry Tam.
Well,
Yes.
that's actually no. That's
For
actually
a program that's been discussed out the arse.
It's not quite true. And anyone who uses a line like that is I'm sorry to aim this not at someone, but just doesn't know what they're talking about and is using stupid talking points from other people. Harry Tam has been very, very effective in getting messages to gangs. He's been very effective in his work to be able to bring people away from gangs. Just because he was a former gang member, I used to do work with a group in South Auckland, Otara, called Crossroads, and it was a gym, and it was all ex-gang members, and it was getting kids out of gangs. It's like just this label of gang person or ex-gang person doesn't mean bad. And this is the problem when you hear people like Harry Tam being used as an excuse. Like go and see the work he's done. He's got a website. Go and read it. Go and read the work he's doing. And you see if there is any middle manager, fucking Pakeha person out of Remuera that could get the places he does to try and help stop the system sliding down into prisons. There's not. If you want to get someone into the gangs to talk people out of gangs, you get someone involved with the gangs. That's how it works. I'm sorry for all the women, religious people who think that they've got the best ministries working in gangs. You don't. People who have been there, done that, are the people to get people out of that. And that's fucking Harry Tam. So,
like, I think back to the late 80s, early 90s when my family was on the bones of its ass. And, you know, my dad was gang adjacent. And there were times when, you know, we couldn't get a food grant or a food parcel out of whatever WINS was called at that stage. But we got it from the gang. We got it from Dad's mates. Mm-hmm. They kept us warm over winter with firewood. And it was like, don't worry, Mrs. Bennett, you can sort us out later. You know, and that's the social network.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind social welfare, is the state is the social network. Yeah. It is the fact that, don't worry, we won't let you fall behind. And instead, it gets turned into a weapon against the poor and the hard of luck, the down and out. And there's always going to be a percentage of people that are not going to return to work, that need very intense wraparound care. And you've got to play the long game. And whenever we get a national government, a right-wing government, they don't play the long game. They play the stick more than the carrot. You know, we're going to support people into work. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it mean? How does it work? When you have record low unemployment, what does that mean? How are you going to get this person into work? Are you going to send them on an addiction course?
Mm.
Are you going to make sure that they're clothed, fed, and washed? That they have an address that they can receive mail at? You know, that they're clean, presentable, well rested before they do a job interview. Is that the sort of support that we're talking about? No, yeah. We're talking about a threat. A threat that if you fall out of work, and God help you if you have to throw yourself at the mercy of WINS, because they're not there to help. They're there to punish. So stay in your job. Don't push for a new job or a new position or a pay rise, because if they don't like you, you're out on your ear.
Hey, thanks to the people for the super chat so far tonight. Frosty Boy National be like, COVID-19, never heard of it. No, I mean, it's to do with when we were talking about the unemployment rate and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Rachel says, watch Ken Loach film, Daniel Blake, for looking at the past to see, It just disappeared.
Oh, sorry, I think I did that.
Oh, looking at the past to see where we are going. Well, we're going to do a little bit of that tonight when we have a look at some talkback out of the UK. And Peter just, I think, shares a late fee of $2. So thank you for that, Peter. Right, Chewy, we're going to talk about your favourite person now.
Oh, what's this sentient dog poo bag got to say?
The conversation around Sean Plunket today is based around the idea of, this is a bit of a strange one because I think you all know this, but when we get a chance to highlight the ludicrous nature of some people who think they're impartial and fair, and they're delving into dis and misinformation, and they're driving their audience towards dis and misinformation, we want to show you. So anyway, I've got a bunch of stuff to say about this 2.5 minutes with this load of pancake batter. So we will get to it. But the idea about this, Chewy, is we're looking at what Sean Plunket needs for evidence for his statements, right? So what does Sean Plunket need when it comes to evidence for his statements? What drives Karen? What drives Karen's opinion? What goes off in Karen's brain to say, yep, I agree with that, or yep, that supports my narrative, and what goes off in Karen's brain to go, that's wrong? It's really important to check this out. Let's have a look.
To the fact that the Atlas Network, gosh, it spent $75,000 in the Pacific region, wasn't it, in the last year or something? Hugely influential, not. But most of this madness came from journalist Mihingarangi, or better known as Joanne Forbes from Fielding.
Sorry, pause that, Pat.
Yeah.
I was wondering where this came from. I was looking at the comment section of our video last night, and heaps of people pointing out that her name's Joanne and that she's a plastic Māori, and she's changed her name at a later time, and she's not really Māori. And so this is good. This is a straight pipeline of what Sean can weaponize some of New Zealand's worst people.
There you go.
Mihingarangi made a documentary about this. You may have seen it. Gosh, I can't remember the name. I think it was basically all about how the voice vote got lost in Australia and how it was all evil right-wing conspiracy theorist people like Atlas. Well, we find out from David Farrar this morning that Joanne Forbes was dead wrong. And in fact, if anyone from Atlas was involved in doing anything, they were advocating for the other side, for the yes vote, not against it, not for no. And when we want to talk about money and influence, and Joanne Mihingarangi Forbes is making a song and dance about that, I'd just like to let you know this. She seems to be able to work anywhere. She works for TV3. Her stuff appears on RNZ. I think
it might be a bit of the green-eyed monster here, Chewy.
So she's part of the select little group of journalists who all share each other's stuff, the spin-off, everything, and they all disappear up each other's foo-foo valves. But it's a good gig, She and a woman called Annabelle Lee Mather, also styles herself as a journalist. They own a company called the Aotearoa Media
You style
Collective.
yourself as a fucking journalist.
I know. I think that's called projection, Chewy.
Currently getting from you, the taxpayer. I can tell you that a couple of years back, 2022, they got a total of more than, they got $452,000 for one project and $187,000 for another project. So that's 5.
So just be clear on what he's doing here, right? And we know that Karen does this. Karen is pointing to their badness by saying they've received public money. This is the part of the conversation I'm going to have at the end, but just to make it really clear.
Around $640,000 to
so this is his evidence as to why we shouldn't be listening to them. His evidence is they've had in the past public funding.
And of course, Mihingarangi Forbes isn't an impartial journalist. She's got very clear views on Te Tiriti. That's why she presumably prefers the name Mihingarangi rather than Joanne, which is her birth name. That buys a lot of influence. It's certainly, by many factors, more than Atlas Network, if it's ever spent any money on issues in New Zealand, which I don't think it has. I don't think anyone can prove that. That's how money, influence and corruption works. You buy off the journalists with the public interest journalism fund.
So here's the conversation. Now, the first thing is, can I just say this really clearly? There's two things. That is racism, what you've just heard, right?
Absolutely.
It's a little bit like this. Let me give it to you in a clearer context. The reason questioning Barack Obama's birth certificate was racist was because he was black. If you had have questioned John McCain's birth certificate, it wouldn't have been racist because John McCain is white. You are questioning his birth certificate because he's black, implying not a part of this land, right? It's exactly the same context to Māori name, Mihingarangi Forbes, Joanne. It's exactly the same thing. The reason that you're taking umbrage at a change of a name, if that is indeed true, I don't know, maybe Mihingarangi is her middle name. My dad's middle name was Bede, and that's what he got known his whole life. I don't know, but the reason that it's utterly racist is because you're bringing up the Māori-ness of someone and saying they're wrong, and like what you just said, Chewy. What did you call it? Plastic Māori. He never said that, but
plastic Māori.
The second thing is,
some of his army of trolls certainly like that too.
The second thing is, and I've said this a dozen times, remember, he is now critical of someone, though I haven't spelled it out entirely yet because I'll give Chewy go first, but he is now critical of someone because of public money they got in the past. Like Sean Plunket did for a good portion of his years. Mm-hmm. He got public money on Fair Go. He got public money at RNZ. And if we're looking to the past, I don't care about people getting public money today, but if we're looking to the past when people got public money as a reason to not believe them, I present a mirror, Mrs. Plunket. Chewy, I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, which is actually not the points yet, but I don't want to hog it all. So you jump in first if you've got anything to say.
So this massive revelation that Mihi Forbes at birth obviously chose the name Joanne, and then at some point decided that she wanted to reflect more of her Māori upbringing by giving herself a Māori name. Wow, what crack journalism from Sean Plunket.
You mean Oliver? Oliver Sean Plunket, as someone says in the chat, eh? Oliver's his first name. Oliver's his first name. Doesn't use
What's Oliver's first name?
Yeah. Oliver Sean Plunket.
We have to call him Oliver from now on. Old Ollie Plunket. Ollie's too rad. It reminds me of skateboarding. But look, here's the thing. He's about that far off from bringing in some sort of blood quantum argument that Mihi's not Māori enough. You know, what percentage of you? Mihi's father's Māori, her mother's not. And people go, that's not enough. The accepted thing is, if you can whakapapa Māori, you are Māori. That is it.
Yep.
Like it's not a question whether you look Māori, you have blonde hair and green eyes. There's plenty of Māori down here in the South Island that have very white skin and blue eyes. They're still whakapapa Māori. Mm. That's it. That's all that needs to be. And when people make that argument of are you Māori enough, when someone like Mihi does more to show that she's Māori, like take a Māori name, like get moko, like speak mōreo, then suddenly they're a plastic Māori and they're not Māori enough. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just that people don't like seeing it, and she's a woman journalist, and Ollie hates that. He hates women journalists more than anything.
This is a really important part about this, and I want us to see this and remember this. Okay, all of us, me included. So Sean Plunket's standard for evidence. Now, David Farrar is the co-founder of the Taxpayers Union. The Taxpayers Union gets funding, is connected to, certainly is alongside the Atlas network. Here is a newsroom article from late last year. As a free market think tank, the Taxpayers Union principles are clear. It is declared its association with the Global Atlas Network umbrella group.
Oh, but that's a conspiracy theory, though.
But it's acceptable for the funding of such an influential group to be a black box. And what about its direct influence on politicians and policies? Later on in that article, it says, as president of Terra World Taxpayers Association, as an Atlas work partner, gets some travel expenses paid. The Taxpayers Union also won awards and travel scholarships from the Atlas Network, chaired by New Zealander Debbie Gibbs, who you talked about last night, daughter of the businessman Alan Gibbs, a long-time supporter of ACT, etc., etc., etc. So, David Farrar...
That's a conspiracy theory.
But David Farrar is the co-founder of the Taxpayers Union, right? So I'm not saying I'm actually not saying there's anything untoward going on. I don't need to, but what I can say is there is a clear connection between David Farrar and the Atlas Network, right? So you could say there's a clear conflict of interest, But Sean Plunket takes David Farrer's word as gospel, even though there is the appearance of a conflict of interest. So what it does, if it suits his narrative, is it doesn't matter where the conflicts come, it suits his narrative. So he says yes to David Farrer, even though you can draw a line straight from him to the Atlas network. Now, when there's no evidence of a conflict of interest, all he can say is taxpayer funded, as a coverall to ignore the work of people like Mihingarangi Forbes. So on one side, there is actual evidence of a connection that is a conflict of interest to the information he's got from that person, and he'll happily accept that as evidence. On the other side, there is no evidence of a conflict of interest, and he's going to poo-poo that because it matches the narrative he wants to sell. All Karen has got is taxpayer funded. Taxpayer funded coverall means I can ignore it. Taxpayer funded means wrong, bad, out there. Whereas wrong, bad, out there, you could easily put a connection in between the Atlas Network, the Taxpayers Union, and David Farrer. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying David's done anything wrong, but there is a line there. You can see it. But he's happy to take his word that Atlas has spent nothing. And actually, in Australia, Atlas only spent $75,000. And if they were going to vote for yes rather than no, whichever way it went. He'll take David Farrier's opinion for that as gospel and as evidence for why Atlas Network has nothing. Yet the people who have got nothing to do with Atlas, he'll blow them off as being biased because public money. That's his level. So, but in other words, his standard of evidence he needs is whatever suits my narrative. I know we know this, but I just wanted to make it very clear for you. Remember, he told me in a podcast that I've played before, woke means anything I don't agree with. That's what he said to me. I've got the clip. Evidence is anything that already works into my narrative, or, and we don't know this, and I'm not saying that this is the case, potentially there's some funders behind them who actually, maybe it means correct is what my funders want to have. What's better, to have like black money in the background that we don't know about and we don't know the contract, or to have an open actual contract that's publicly available from New Zealand On Air funding? Which is safer? Which should we be able to read both of them? Anyway, that's what I wanted to say, Chewy, about that.
What percentage of Ollie's funding is public money, just gone through somebody else's hands?
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about this, right? Ollie is, of course, not on the public tip because he's far too honourable for that. But the Wright Family Foundation that fund him absolutely are on the public tip.
300 million.
On the chain of early childhood centres and birthing centres. They get a massive amount of public funding, and with that, they have so much leftover discretionary spending that they can personally bankroll Ollie to be a toxic leftover bag of dog shit on the walking track that you really like, and really just stir up some of New Zealand's worst internet dwellers and point them at people.
And remember, Chewy,
I bet if you go to Mihi's social networks and that sort of thing, the comments on it will be vile. Someone in the chat just mentioned going to Plunket's page and just seeing the quality of discourse that this man stirs up is disgusting.
Oh, and also, just remember as well, then, this is about money. Chewy, you and I have sat in a meeting with high-level media people like last year, where they said to us that the platform is burning through 150,000 a month, and they're bringing in about 60K a month. $2 million doesn't last very long if you're about 100K a month down. And if they're not at the end of that $2 million already, maybe they've already gone past it. Maybe there's another funder out there. He says, wondering out loud without any knowledge of anything else. But that's we were told by some pretty high-level, influential media people in the game that he was at least losing $90,000 a month between outgoings and income. So $90,000 a month over $2 million is 21, 22 months. All the money's gone. What next?
If there wasn't someone like Oliver Plunket out there spewing vile, you might have to fund a whole range of horrible racists with smaller platforms, and just the admin on that is just too onerous. So to just have one big check going to one big fat disgusting piece of shit, the admin's heaps easier.
Yeah, and just remember,
the good thinking, the Right Family Foundation.
There's a couple of people out there in the last month that have won 17 million and then 8.5 million. You know, if you're out there and you want to, help out a genuine progressive group, you can give us a call. We'll take your call. There are a couple of chats in there that I want to get to. His birth certificate says Sean, now he's Karen, so how is that any different? Yeah, that's probably true.
Oh, so speaking of that, I've got to come clean as well. Like, this might be shocking.
Right.
Chewy's not my birth name.
What? Your wife calls you Chewy. I don't believe you. Your wife calls you Chewy.
I know.
Bizarre.
And I also don't fuck a Papa Wookie. So there's that as well. So
I should probably do it. I should probably do it as well. Patrick. My birth name is Patrick, but I go by Pat. So just in case, maybe I did it because I needed.
Another lie, Pat.
David Monster says Sean Plunket eats corn the long way.
Oh, that image. Thank you very much for that nightmare.
I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited by this last thing, Chewy. I'm quite excited because it's about talkback and I love talkback. And I have to be really honest with you guys. Not this first part, but the second call I'm going to play, it was only 90 seconds. I actually find quite emotional. And the reason I find it emotional is because I'm empathetic. And no matter what people say about what we've done and what we've said about, anti-vaxxers and stuff, I think our driving factor always has been one of empathy because people have been fooled, right? Now, that's anyone who's in a cult, that's my initial reaction is one of empathy when they've been fooled. Now, I'm going to play you a couple of calls here. And the first one's actually only about 15 seconds. It's not even a call. Because the first segment I'm going to play you is talking about the words that this person's using who regrets voting for Brexit. Hear the words that they're saying. Think about the communities that got behind National and ACT. See if you can hear the difference, because I certainly can. Difference? The similarities is what I mean. If you can hear the same sort of words coming up, the tribal words coming up, that sort of thing. The second call I'm going to play you is about a guy who thinks he's solely responsible for ruining the UK because of his vote for Brexit. And it's honestly heart-wrenching. I've listened to it a couple of times and it kind of chokes me up a little bit when I listen to it. Because it's not fair. I mean, when we talked about, and I'm not saying I want to have a debate with you tonight now about COVID, but when we talked about those people who were fooled by the cult, it was the disinformation dozen that were the dirty bastards at the top who you have no empathy for. The people getting fooled at the bottom were the ones that were like that journalist in Pukekohe in Auckland who wished on his deathbed he had got the vaccine, but he'd been fooled into it and he died from it. And, grandkids were gone. The grandkids lost their granddad, the kids lost their father. I find it mostly sad. So in the situation today, with what's happened with National and ACT in New Zealand First, my bet is in a year to 2 years from now, there'll be a bunch of people talking like these two calls I'm going to play you are talking, who regret what they've done because what's happening, can we just say a war in the Middle East being involved with, is not what they voted for. What's happening to Māori, for these people who voted for National ACT thinking, I know my son-in-law is Māori, but this is going to be good, or who thinks, I know that my best mate, but it's going to be, who then see in 18 months' time what they've voted for is going to cause them to feel like this. So I'm just going to play the first show and then you can respond. So this first one's very short. It's not a full call. He's just talking to a woman and he's talking to her and she uses phrases that are cult-like. Remember, these are people who are phoning up who are saying why they regret their vote. And if you know anything about cults, things happen like it builds community. You do a thing called love bombing. There's lots of things that happen that draw you into that cult. You become isolated. You're in your own echo chamber, all these things. And it's, I think, what's happened with National and ACT in New Zealand First for a portion of the people who voted. And I just wanted to show you why I'm relating it to Brexiters, people who are regretting their Brexit vote. Have a listen.
I remember being stunned by people who were adamant that everybody agreed with them. And it took me a while to realise that every single person they met did agree with them, whether it was in the pub or online or in the the canteen at work. That's what you're describing, an almost unchallenged position reached by gaslighting or by media lies, but unchallenged by
community formed.
Exactly that, yes. And it became part of people's identity.
We all, yeah. That's exactly what happened. But the difference is, the morning that vote came in, and it didn't go the way everyone wanted it to, it wasn't until that moment that we were all the direct.
So that's one of the differences, is they felt a thing called remorse straight away afterwards. But you heard her saying things like it created community. It was the same echo chamber. And I'll just point to you to do with people voting for National and ACT in New Zealand First. Same thing. Everyone they spoke to was saying the same things. Same thing. Now, this is only, you can see it's only 90 seconds, and I'll play the whole thing. This guy's phoned up, and at the start of the conversation, he's quite bright and bubbly, and he goes, "Oh, I've got to make an apology to you, but there will be people in New Zealand who feel like this in 18 months' time, realising what they've voted for and haven't got it." You just have a listen.
Bill's in Exmouth. Bill, what would you like to say?
Actually, James, I owe you an apology, my dear fellow. I was wrong.
Go on.
I was wrong. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that... I'm an old-fashioned git, really, I suppose.
We've spoken before.
Yeah, we've spoken before. Yeah. And do you know what? You are right. I was wrong. For some reason,
Go on.
I thought we were better off, and clearly I was wrong.
Well, don't beat yourself up, Bill, mate. Listen to all the people that told you we would be. I've spent the whole morning telling them they've been whispering in your ear, not just for 2.5 years, for 30 years.
I was wrong. I am so sorry.
Oh, Bill, mate, come on.
Jesus.
What have I done to my country? I'm so sorry.
Bill, there's 17.4 million people. You can't take all the blame on your own shoulders, my friend. Come on. And look at the effort. These people are billionaires. They own the Ritz, Bill. They own the Daily Telegraph. They wouldn't have spent all that money and put all that effort into trying to persuade you to act against your own interests if they didn't think it was plausible. I'm not going to let you blame yourself, Bill. All right? No. Blame them, Bill. Blame them, Bill. Do not blame yourself.
I'm sorry, James.
Don't be sorry. Be angry, all right? And if you're not angry yet, I'll get angry on your behalf. That right there. That's why I've been doing what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years.
Yep. I can throw it to you, Chewy. But do you see what I mean? Like, can you just imagine there'll be people, I mean, that was pretty dramatic, but that's why I played it. There will be people in New Zealand on some level, at some stage in this term, who I predict will be going like that. What have I done to my country? What have I put us in? Why have I put us in? Why did I lend my vote to help put us in this position? Yours, sir.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things about that clip, right? It's what I love about Talkback. Okay, there's one that's just like a Talkback moment that you couldn't script, and it speaks to something, right? So many people in the UK that voted for Brexit, they weren't voting for Brexit.
Yeah,
they were voting as a protest vote against other things.
Against 100%.
They just wanted to be part of the percentage that said we're not happy. And whenever things aren't going well, that's like, I want something to register my voice. And the way that they positioned Brexit was to scoop up those people. And so many people in the UK voted against their interests. So many business owners voted against their interests.
Yeah.
They shut themselves off from their biggest markets. They shut themselves off from their retirement on the sunny coast of Spain. You know, they shut them off from easy travel within Europe. And they went, oh my God, I didn't think this would happen. The feeling of being used. And I can't overstate this, how broken parts of the UK society are. They don't change their government. They can't change their government very often. They're still using first past the post.
Yeah.
So where do you put your dissatisfaction? When these rich families own all of the media, they get to shape all of your opinions. And then they get to wind you up and point you in a direction. And then you've got to, like that fella, he's realised what he's done. He's realised he's been suckered. I see the same thing when people come into work and they've been scammed by confidence scams online. Yeah. They feel stupid. How could I have fallen for this? It's so obvious. And the answer is like, this is what these people do. It's not all your fault. But someone has taken advantage of you. And that is where a lot of my rage towards so many people that are being scooped up by this information machine, whether it's anti-COVID, whether it's pro-Trump, QAnon, MAGA, all of this stuff. This myth of Māori elites running the show here, all of this stuff. People that listen to Plunket, they're looking for a community. They're looking for someone to tell them, no, you're not stupid. You're the only people that see the truth. It's the truth that I show you. That makes you smart. That is incredibly powerful. You end up with people that have isolated themselves into networks like on Telegram and Signal and certain Facebook groups and all of that sort of thing. And it's a reinforcement loop. You're not stupid. You're not crazy. No matter what your friends and family in the real world say, you're with us, your friends. We're the only ones that know what's going on. When you're lonely and isolated and you don't feel like you're running with the herd, that is incredibly powerful. So hard to break.
Yeah. And look, I mean, seeing a few chats go past, I'm not suggesting everyone who voted for ACT and New Zealand First and National will be as emotional as that person just was. But there will be a portion of people, I mean, that was an extreme example, but there will be a portion of people who will go from the first call we heard, which is, this is not what I voted for, blah, 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 through to what have I done for my kids and grandkids? What have I done for my grandkids? How can I have supported this, and what's happening now, and what's going to be the future for my Māori grandchildren, or whatever the case may be, even though I'm not Māori. And I think it will come. Now, I think I'd like to see it come in this term. I'm not suggesting there's only going to be a one-term government, but I think it will come. And I think that, I feel like, it sounds a bit arrogant, yeah, but I feel like, because we could have done this every cycle, but it feels like we're now able to, I don't know why I feel this. Maybe because I'm keeping an eye on it, so it feels more real to me. But able to go, hey, remember what National did with education? No, that's the reason that these are the effects today. You know, we did do it a little bit at the last election, which was national standards causing those 15-year-olds to underperform. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is Labor did a piss poor job at selling that truth. But I get the sense, maybe it is because of things like Twitter and independent media and that kind of stuff are able to. We're not relying on the gatekeepers anymore. You know, that's good. It also brings out the worst in everybody, as True was saying before about some of the things that are being said. But I like I said, James O'Brien turns up in my algorithms on YouTube, and I heard those and I just went, this is foretelling something for New Zealand, and I wanted us to investigate that. And that's about it.
Since we played a talkback clip, can I play my one? It's an old classic. It's old.
Sure.
You know what I'm going to play?
I'm not sure. I know who it is.
A bit sorry for Boris, Mark, or not?
That's where I've been for the last few years. I've got to say, I'm immensely grateful to you for everything you've done in British politics over the last few years. I used to be an ardent Remain. I voted Remain. I believed in the European project. Mm-hmm. I believed that staying in the European Union was the best thing for us. And then something happened, and something monumental happened. And it completely changed my opinion on the whole situation.
What was that monumental thing, Mark?
I was kicked in the head by a horse.
Right, very good.
You know, that's good, but seeing we've started the game, I'm going to play one of my favourites, and I think mine's better. All right.
Oh, throwdown.
Yeah, here we go. Here's mine. You ready? Here we go.
Morning, Mike.
Oh, hello. What are you glued to, Cameron?
Just your screen, unfortunately.
Unfortunately? What do you do for a living, Cameron?
I'm a carpenter.
A carpenter, right. So how safe is that for the climate?
Well, I work with timber, which is a much more sustainable material rather than concrete. I also
But you work with trees that have been cut down then, don't you?
It's a sustainable building practice.
How is it sustainable if you're killing trees?
Because it's regenerative, you can grow trees.
Right. Well, you can grow all sorts of things, can't you?
You can't grow concrete.
You can.
This is the best bit. Looking.
See you, Cameron. Cheerio.
That's it. How much do you love that?
Masterfully done.
Does it win?
Well
I think
done.
I win. Do I win? Do I
That's
win?
good. I'm going to call it a draw.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, team, it's been fun. Lots going on this week. We have got people coming to join us on Thursday night. Chill, you don't know this yet. Dun, 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 dun. On Tuesday night, I'm looking for my mess. Oh, there it is. Dainu, New Zealand, are coming to join us. I might have the pronunciation of that wrong, but Dainu, New Zealand, are coming to join us. They are New Zealand Jews Against Occupation. Dainu.
Oh, nice.
New Zealand Jews Against Occupation will be joining us on Thursday night live at 9 o'clock. I've also been speaking to a academic from the University of Technology in Sydney who has done a piece on titled Silencing the Voice, the Fossil-Fueled Atlas Network's Campaign Against Constitutional Recognition of Indigenous Australia. So if you want to get the lowdown on who that is all about, I'm actually thinking, Troy, I haven't told you this either yet, but next Thursday someone in my house is having a small procedure at the hospital. So maybe we might interview that gentleman, that academic, and upload it for next Thursday night. Maybe. We'll see how that works out, because I wouldn't mind being free to service someone in my house that's having a small procedure. So yeah, lots going on. Hope you're enjoying the week. That's about it. So I can see there's a couple of people who have done a little bit of Patreoning tonight. Stuart's joined, and Dean has amended their membership. I'll try and figure out how to put those on the billboard. I'm finally at that point where I'm like, how can I do this anymore? I got to design something new. And I was thinking about maybe doing a meetup this Saturday morning. So if people want to have a meetup, people want to come and catch us online and say g'day, we might do that this Sunday morning. It's time. And if you are a executive producer, part of the executive producer package is a monthly catch up. So there's a couple of you that we're going to try and catch up with individually this month as well. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, one person.
Cool. That's it. It's a quorum. We're there.
It's a quorum.
It's a quorum. We're there. All right, guys. Hey, interesting bit of a different show tonight. Couple of more kind of opinion-based things. Hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, there is so much in the news at the moment. We'll continue it on. Remember to bring a friend when you come back tomorrow. And just look, it's always important to critically analyze the information that you're getting, including from us, right? I think as much as we can, we will always put out there, this is where, this is why, this is the information. And you get people like Karen, otherwise known as Oliver, who will just go, blah, 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 David Farrar, I believe that. And it's not because David Farrar said it, it's because it's already their narrative. So there is always a bias to check out there. We have our bias, but you guys will know what it is. And I'll say it again, and I would say this to Oliver if he wanted to talk to me ever, is that just because we sit somewhere politically doesn't make us wrong. It doesn't innately make us right either, so you got to come at us with the facts. Just because someone gets public funding doesn't mean what they're saying is wrong. It doesn't mean what is being publicly funded is inaccurate. Right? Just put it to a critical analysis like you should do everything. Do you want to believe a person who has to, right? This is the thing, who has to clickbait people into signing up or else his business will disappear? Think about it this way. Or people who get public money who don't need to drive a profit back to their investors. They just need to provide a product. Whereas someone else has to put a profit back to their investors. So they have to, no matter what they say, the more controversial, the more clickbaity, the better, no matter what they say, that the only thing that matters is that money back. Because if they don't get the money back, they no longer exist. People who get funded from NZ On Air don't have to worry about that. All they have to worry about is the content. And remember how it works. They say to New Zealand On Air, this is what we're going to do. New Zealand On Air says, okay, we'll fund that. And then they do it. Just because it's publicly funded doesn't mean it's got any interference by any government, red or blue.
Big government bad, public money bad, much better idea. All our media outlets being funded and run by big family dynasties of people with lots of money.
Yeah.
That's much more even-handed, much more transparent. We'll have the Gibbs, the rights. Let's get Murdoch in here. I don't know, the fucking Saudis. Surely they want to buy a newspaper. Yeah, heaps better. What the fuck is Plunket on?
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
Yeah. All right.
Like, fully commercial media in New Zealand would not work. We are too small.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the truth. Or else stories wouldn't get told. Simple as that. Yep. I mean, you know, Newstalk ZB, I know that there's funding for Newstalk ZB. Newstalk ZB might not get it directly, but I know of people who make product for Newstalk ZB who get New Zealand Air funding. However, Newstalk ZB has a model that works commercially. But that is white, conservative, certain age. That's what works. Now, if that would be all that would be funded in New Zealand media, then that's all that we would have. Getting funded from government or from whatever other gives an opportunity for other voices to be heard, for other stories to be told that might be just as valuable, but because we're in a small country, there's not the commercial opportunity to monetize them, to make them. That's how it works. Yeah, we know, Brother Mark. We've done that a few times, eh? We just need to get us. If anyone's got Soros's phone number, just give him to give us a call. We'll sort him out. All right.
We could just bring it up at the next Woke Blokes picnic.
Woke Bloke FM. That's quite a good one. I like that. Maybe we should look at a radio station ourselves. All right, guys, we're going now. I'm going now. So show, because when I go, he has to. He can't stay here by himself.
He just pulls the pin.
And we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Be safe. Come back tomorrow. Bring a friend. Hooroo.
Cheers, man.